ostentatious, colossal, or exaggerated. It seems that Dubai always aspires to carry out the biggest, most luxurious, and most eccentric projects in the world. According to VisualPolitik, within this small territory alone, you can find the tallest building, the most luxurious hotel, and even the largest international airport on the planet. And yet, just 30 years ago, this territory was radically different. This is Dubai in 1990. The growth process of Dubai is one of the fastest in human history. In just 20 years, it went from being a remote and lost enclave in the desert to becoming one of the world's most in-demand destinations. But how was this achieved? What followed for Dubai is the astounding role research and development played to radically change the destiny of this desert nation. In the United Arab Emirates, innovation is the result of iterative efforts by multiple stakeholders and is enhanced by their interactions as part of an overarching innovation system, or, as is commonly stated, an innovation ecosystem. The Mazda Institute of Science and Technology, or simply put, Mazda Institute, located in the capital of the UAE, is a key vehicle to achieve these foundational elements of innovation required for an economic transformation. The Mazda Institute was launched by the Abu Dhabi government in 2007 to play a key role in achieving the UAE's economic diversification goals. Developed in collaboration with the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, the Institute's vision is to be a world-class graduate-level research and educational institution that provides leaders in advanced energy and sustainability and positions Abu Dhabi as a knowledge hub for socio-economic growth. Within the context of this vision, Mazda Institute responds to the growing global need for products, services, and solutions relating to renewable energy, water, environment, and the fundamental material and information technologies that underpin economic growth. Its graduates become highly sought-after specialists in engineering and science, providing the UAE with a high-value cadre of professionals to power its economy. This is the principle that the Tertiary Education Trust Fund is seeking to inspire by coordinating a joint effort between government, industry, and academia in order to create a Nigerian industrial revolution. These are the chronicles of the journey to institutionalize research and development in Nigeria. Hello, and welcome to this edition of TETFund, The Paradigm Shift. I am Stanley Bentu. Nigeria is a country that is blessed with a large number of natural resources, chief of which is the much sought-after crude oil. Unfortunately, when the oil taps were turned on, the thinking caps for many were suddenly turned off. Much like Nigeria, for Dubai, it all began with oil. But it's what they did with it that made all the difference. Rather than use it to pay for government's running expenses, as Nigeria did, they invested in R&D. While Dubai's reserves were nothing compared to those of its neighbor in the United Arab Emirates, that is Abu Dhabi, Dubai's ruler, Sheikh Rashid bin Saeed Al Maktoum, was determined to turn the city into a trading hub. From an early period, the revenue from oil was put towards developing Dubai for a day when it would no longer have that income source to rely upon. In the 1960s and 70s, the Dubai Creek, a saltwater creek that runs through the center of the city, was dredged several times to allow progressively larger number of ships to pass through and trade. By most accounts, things changed in the 1990s and the early 2000s. By 1985, the city opened the Middle East's first major free trade zone, a place where foreign companies could operate and almost no taxes or customs were charged. And there was a cut in streamlined bureaucracy. Now, in the years after 9/11, Dubai's economy kicked into full gear and a development boom began that, aside from a drastic crisis around 2009, never ended. The outcomes are quite astounding. While today, Dubai basically pays all of its receipts from oil into its foreign reserves as it can afford to sustain itself through other means, Nigeria, on the other hand, struggles under debt and undesirable influences on its economic management by countries who advance us those debts. But TETFund is determined to change all that, not by reinventing the wheel, but by careful application of a principle that has served every prosperous nation in the world so well, the triple helix model. Now, what is this model and why does it work so well? Let's find out.
How do countries grow rich? Economic growth can happen as goods and services are traded within the borders of a country. But a country can greatly increase its wealth advantage by exports. Exports are goods and services that are produced in one country and purchased by the residents of another country. It doesn't matter what the good or service is or how it's sent. A product can be shipped, sent by email, or carried in personal luggage on a plane. It's an export if it's produced domestically and sold to someone in a foreign country. The effects of this process can trickle down to consumers. It follows that the more options of products a country has to export, the richer it can become. Exports can be raw materials, technology, machinery, or industrial products. Countries that end up very rich are those who deliberately expand their export list by adding value to raw materials. The more complex the product or service, the more money a country can charge for it. Simply put, digging a hole in the ground and selling whatever you find there will earn you considerably less than the aggregate of all the refined products that are made from the same product you dug the ground for. This is why industrial nations dominate the world economy. In the process of governing a country or producing a product for the national and international markets, governments and industries will encounter problems. In the past, each would wallow in its own problems, seeking makeshift solutions wherever it can. But today, government and industry can recruit the academia to carry out research and discover solutions to those problems and provide same in the form of new technologies or methods that increase efficiency and productivity. In the end, the industry is happy as it will use these new products and methods to achieve more profits. The government is happy as it has presided over economic growth, which often means more jobs and a healthier economy. And academia is happy as it has received funding and affirmation in addition to contributing to the expansion of the knowledge economy. This is the vision of the Executive Secretary of TETFund, Professor Sulaiman Elias Bogoro, and serves as the inspiration for the establishment of the Department of Research and Development, Centers of Excellence. The department, amongst other things, coordinates the interactions between the three pillars of Nigeria's knowledge economy.
The idea of focusing on R&D as a priority area for the academia that our law permits us to fund from TETFund started in 2014. And I wrote, the Board of Trustees asked me to articulate my vision for 5 years as Executive Secretary of TETFund. And I wrote a 6-pointer. And one of the 6 pillars of my vision was the institutionalization of R&D in Nigeria beyond the academia. And I realized that we have a major problem. Major problem being we are not prioritizing research enough. We tend to have been emphasizing teaching, of course, at the expense of research. And I insist that one shapes, defines, and strengthens the other. Definitely it is research that shapes, strengthens, and defines teaching. If you are teaching and you are not improving courtesy of research, either through pedagogic skills, etc., then the quality of teaching and communication of knowledge diminishes. And that is the idea of my deciding on promoting the institutionalization of R&D, and there were actually supposed to be two levels. One, even emphasizing research in the university system, of course, as well as polytechnics and colleges of education, was important. But beyond that, I noticed a clear weakness in the Nigerian environment, being that the academia was much less concerned about establishing partnership, reaching out to industry. And I thought that was patently wrong.
10 years ago, the federal government of Nigeria initiated a support and intervention agency for the Nigeria tertiary education, which has now made an indelible mark in the sands of time. Tertiary Education Trust Fund, TETFund. The Board of Trustees, management and staff of the Tertiary Education Trust Fund, TETFund, hereby invites stakeholders to its 10th anniversary. Special guest of honor, Honorable Minister of Education, Malam ADAMU. Guest of honor, Minister of State for Education, Honorable Chukwuemeka Nwajiuba. Chairman of the occasion, Olorokun Dr. Sunny Folorum Shokuku, OFR, FAS. Date, 16 December 2021. Venue, Transco Hilton, Congress Hall, Abuja. Time, 10 a.m. All COVID-19 protocols will be strictly adhered to. Professor Sulaiman Elias Bogoro, Executive Secretary, Tertiary Education Trust Fund, TETFund. Announcer.
Well, over the years, there's been a lot of talk about the National Research and Development Foundation, the TETFund Centers of Excellence, the National Research Foundation, and the interventions for book publications, and so on and so forth. But what is important is keeping a close eye on the progress of these initiatives while observing the milestones along the way. To develop a country is one of the most difficult and time-consuming efforts that any people can undertake. Building a country's economy is similar to planting a tree. Even when you do everything right, you would have to keep doing it persistently and consistently for at least 20 years for full impact to be felt. Now, there is an expression which says the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago, and the second best time is today. This underscores the urgency to fully commit ourselves to research for development because there is much work to be done. Now, how much progress has been made so far? The Paradigm Shift sat with TETFund's director for R&D/Centers of Excellence, Dr. Saliu Bakari Jire, and he gives us an update.
A lot has actually happened, a lot has taken place, in fact, in all fronts. You know, the institutionalization of R&D is a major thrust of the agenda of the Executive Secretary of TETFund. So, throughout the year, I would say, one, you recall that we had inaugurated the R&D Standing Committee, and they have now gone very, very far. They have submitted a report, and that report has metamorphosed into the drafting of the National Research and Development Fund Bill, that's NRDF bill. This bill has since been submitted to the Ministry of Education, and we hope that before the end of the year, it will now become a property of the Federal Executive Council, en route to the National Assembly for possible consideration and assent into low. So secondly, the fund has already established, as I said earlier, 12 centers of excellence. Those 12 centers of excellence in Nigerian universities have taken off. They've already developed their action plans. They've traveled far and near. They've undertaken study tours to sister institutions across the world. Some of them have been to Rwanda, Ethiopia, Egypt, with a view to understudying how centers of excellence emerge, as well as with a view to partnering, looking for partnership, because you cannot have a center of excellence and remain a local or localized center of excellence. Yes, you think local, but you think you act local, but you think global. So they have done that. This is with regards to the centers of excellence. And in addition to that, 12 more centers of excellence have been established, 6 in colleges of education and 6 in polytechnics. In addition to that, the National Research Fund, has just got additional, we've just got additional fund. If you will recall, we said so that in 2019, the allocation was 5 billion naira. In 2020, the allocation was 7.5 billion. This year, the allocation has again jacked up to 8.5 billion naira. And the committee of NRF has just been reconstituted, and a call for submission of concept notes and subsequently proposals will soon be out. In fact, it will be out by next week. And in under 2020 research grant, we've got the highest research grants awardees. We've awarded 217, the highest ever in the history of TETFund. And all these are research proposals that are aimed at solving various problems of Nigeria's economy. The centers of excellence in polytechnics are going to focus on skills development. As you know, that polytechnics are basically entrepreneurship centers. They are meant to help this country with mid-level manpower, technicians, and so on and so forth. So that will ultimately lead to self-employment, and also that will help Nigeria to stand on its own. It has always been the concern of the Executive Secretary and the Chairman of the Board of Trustees that Nigerian universities must compete favorably with other sister institutions across the world. And remember that before 2015, there was no Nigerian university that was ranked among the first 2,000 in the world, nowhere at all. And TETFund, through concerted efforts, deliberate efforts, targeted intervention, we've been able to have some of Nigerian universities, especially today University of Ibadan, is among the first 500 in the world. And this is something that, well, we should appreciate, something we should be proud of, but again, it's something that will tell us that we have to do more. So TETFund has Board of Trustees and the Executive Secretary have carefully thought it wise that there should be a workshop for all universities in Nigeria to have a meeting, a workshop on to brainstorm, and distill, identify why are our Nigerian universities lagging behind in terms of competitiveness, in terms of ranking, and what can be done by the universities, what can be done by government, what can be done by TETFund, what can be done by all stakeholders to help Nigeria to move, up the ladder, so that we may be among the first, because before you are called a world-class university, you must belong to first 100. And for us to do that, everybody must be on board. So all the vice chancellors, in fact, all the key stakeholders, the vice chancellors, directors of academic programs, librarians, all of them from the south, have been gathered in Lagos to brainstorm and to first to understand what it takes for a university to be world class, what it takes to be competitive, and then to also identify where we are and the steps we need to take and the steps that we must take to make our universities competitive, to make our universities to be among the world class. This is actually what took place in Lagos. And a similar one will take place in Abuja very soon for all the universities from the north. The plans are, one, there has to be sustained funding. Just as I said, last year, 7.5 billion was invested in research, in applied research. This year, it has moved to 8.5 billion. Hopefully, in the next year too, this Board of Trustees, in their wisdom, and the Executive Secretary, I believe, there is going to be an additional recommendation for higher investment in this direction. Secondly, there is going to be continuous training and investment in human capital. So far, over 40,000 of academic staff in Nigerian universities, polytechnics and colleges of education have been trained up to PhD level by TETFund over the years. This will continue. TETFund has also introduced postdoctoral fellowship funding for postdoctoral fellowship, because this is actually key in helping academic staff to strengthen their research capabilities and capacities, as well as to strengthen partnerships with other universities and other academic staff all over the world. So this is an area again that TETFund has introduced and intends to continue with. We are also providing specialized training on research writing and management of research grant skills. This is one key area that if our academic staff are to compete favorably with their sister institutions or with their colleagues all over the world, then they must be able to write fundable proposals. And this has been one key weak point for Nigerian academics over time. So far, within the last 2 years, over 1,000 academic staff have been trained, either in the UK, in Germany, in Dubai, in Rwanda, or in United States, on how to write research, fundable research, how to be able to compete favorably. Because if there is going to be any application or research grants, it has to be competitive. And for you to be competitive, you must have the skills and the arts and the skills of writing research grants to win among your colleagues. In fact, any intervention in content research, be it library development, be it academic staff training, be it conference attendance, or National Research Fund, or the RD or the IBR, all these interventions are aimed at just achieving one thing. One, improve the capacity and capability of our academic staff to undertake cutting-edge research to solve Nigeria's problems. And two, to ultimately transform Nigeria into a knowledge economy.
Now, a lot of ethnic and religious tensions that we've experienced over the years in Nigeria can be traced back to an over-reliance on crude oil. When completely deconstructed, some of the arguments that we often hear simply come down to, how can my ethnic or religious group gain more access and control over the wealth generated from oil receipts? Or perhaps, better translated, how can I, as a politically influential figure, manipulate ethnic and religious sentiments to position myself for greater access to the proceeds of oil wealth? All of these tensions can be cured when Nigeria becomes more reliant on ideas that provide greater technology and diversified income, to the point where the country no longer cares about sharing oil wealth. And where do ideas come from? Well, they come from this country's greatest untapped resource, its human capital. And that is the paradigm shift. Join us again next time. Until then, thank you for stopping by. Good night.